Hello everyone and welcome to episode 17 of my Black Ops 3 Mod Tools tutorial series. In episode 16 we focused on the implementation of the mystery box. As part of that video we discussed adding the mystery box, randomized start locations, and editing box weapons. If you need to or haven't already, be sure to go give that one a watch and then come back to this video so you can keep up to date with where we're at as we progress. In today's episode we're going to focus on the process of adding doors and debris to our map, which will include rotating doors, sliding doors, power doors, buyable debris, zone activation preparation, and general tips and tricks. Now I've actually just gone ahead and set up a new map file for the purpose of the next few tutorials, just to streamline the process and keep things simplified for you guys. So as we can see, the map is sectioned off into 9 segments in preparation for our zoning tutorial, but this will give us a good opportunity to showcase the different types of doors and debris we can work with for our maps. So we're going to start out here with rotating doors. So what you guys will need to do is just place some door models into your map if you haven't already. Once you've got those doors placed down, what we're going to do is just select them and then go to your entity browser. And we're going to come down to where it says script and we're going to go to model. And then what you can do is you can either double click this or you can drag it over into the camera view here. And that'll convert those models into a script model. Small tip is that you can do multiple at the same time whilst they're both selected, or you can do them individually. If you need to check that they have been converted, then you can just go to your entity info with them selected, and you'll be able to see up the top here, it says multiple selected script model. If I was to select them individually, then again, you can just see it says script model up the top here. Next, we're just going to go ahead and give it some KVPs. So we're going to start off with the target name. So the target name is going to be the name of your door. You can call this whatever you want. In my case, because it's the first door we're doing, I'm just going to call it door 1. We're then also going to add a few additional KVPs. So this one is going to be script underscore string. And we're going to set this value to rotate. And this is what's going to dictate that this door is a rotating door. Then we're going to add one more KVP here, which is going to be script underscore angles. And then the value, we're going to do 0 space 0 space 0. And this is where we're going to determine which axis the door is going to be rotating on and to what angle. So in order to determine the angle in which it's going to rotate to, what you'll do is if you select one of the doors, enable the rotation mode by pressing R on your keyboard. And then with the entity info window open, if you look up the top here where it says angles, this is going to tell us what it's currently sitting at. So it's currently sitting at a 90-degree angle. And then if I rotate it, and let's say I rotate it like this, you'll see that that angle begins to change in the entity info. And in this case, the position that it's currently at is 360. So if I want it to be in this position when it's open, then what I need to do is go down to this value here, and I'm going to set the middle to 360, and that is because when I rotated it, it was the middle value that changed. So we're going to do the same with the second door here. So keeping an eye up the top, enable the rotation mode, and we'll see what this turns to. All right, so that is going to be 180, and so we set that middle value to 180. Once you're done with that, you're then going to want to place a clip down. So what we'll do is in our texture window, search up clip if you need to. Just make sure that that is selected. I'm going to switch into my developer view here, and we're just going to draw the clip over the door frame here. Now, generally speaking, I like to do it for the same scale or dimensions as the actual door frame itself. If not, then you could just technically do it over the door itself like this. Whatever is your preference, but for me personally, I like to do it over the entire door frame. And what we're going to do is with the brush selected, we're going to go back to our entity browser and we're going to convert this one to a brush model. So same location, we're going down to script and then brush model. I'm just going to drag that over. If I go to my entity info, I consider that is now a script brush model. With our clip still selected, we're going to go to our entity info, and the first thing I want to draw your attention to is dynamic path. We're just going to want to make sure that this is turned to true. Reason we do this is that when it comes to zoning, basically this is going to make it so that the zombies ignore this until the door has actually been activated. So this prevents zombies from trying to walk through this before it's actually passable. Scrolling down, we're going to go down to target name, and we're going to give this target name the same name as our door models. So in our case, it was door 1. And then we're also going to add another KVP, which is going to be script underscore noteworthy. And then the value is going to be clip. And those are the only two values that we're going to need to add or change in here. And then the last piece of the puzzle for the door is to add a trigger. So in your entity browser, come down to where it says trigger and expand that. And then what we're going to do is you can use either a trigger use or a trigger use touch. My preference is to use a trigger use touch. And the reason for this is because a trigger use touch makes it so that you only need to be touching any part of the trigger in order for the prompt to pop up. Whereas a trigger use, you have to be touching the center of the trigger, as far as I understand anyway. So I'm going to use a trigger use touch, but you can use a trigger use. They'll both work more or less the same in the setup. We're going to pop that in, and it's going to operate a little bit like a brush. I'm just going to pop this here over the door. And what I'm going to do is just make it the same dimensions. But what I'll do is I'm actually going to have it protruding out from the door on both sides. What this is going to make it do is make it so that if you're approaching the trigger from either side of the door, you'll get that pop up to open it. So with that placed in, I'm going to go to my entity info. I'm going to go down to the target name here. And we're going to set the target name to zombie_door. Now this must be called zombie door in order for this to work properly. We're also then going to add another KVP, and we're going to give this property as target. And then we're going to set the value to the target name of our script model and script brush model, which in our case was door 1. All right, so what this is doing is this is dictating that it's a zombie door, and then the target is saying that the trigger is going to be connected to those models and brush models we just set up. We're then also going to add our cost. So the property is going to be zombie_cost. And then the value is the number in points or dollars that it's going to cost to open the door. So in my case, just for testing purposes, I'm going to set this to 100 points. So that way it's nice and easy for us to get to without having to work too hard for it. Another KVP that we're going to add here is going to be script_flag. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave the value blank for this. I'm going to circle back to this towards the end of the video. Okay, so in total, there should be 4 KVPs that we've tweaked. So you've got the target name, script flag, which is blank, the target, which is going to target the name of our model and brush model, and then the zombie cost, which is going to dictate the cost of the door. Moving on now to sliding doors. Now, sliding doors can be set up using either a model or a brush. Either or works exactly the same. The only difference is that it just dictates whether you're going to be using a script model or a script brush model. In my case here, I've gone ahead and used a brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to a script brush model because it is a texture brush. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give it a target name of whatever we want. So in this case here, it could just be door 2 if we wanted. And then we're going to give it another KVP. This one is going to be script string. And in this case, it's going to be move as opposed to rotate. So the difference between the two here is rotate is obviously rotating on an angle, whereas move is going to be moving along a certain axis. And then we're going to add another KVP, and that's going to be script vector. And then similarly to the rotating doors, we're just going to put 3 zeros here with spaces in between. And we're going to determine which axis we're going to be moving this on. So in order to determine that, this one's going to work a little bit differently. So we're not going to be referring to the entity info for the value. We're actually going to be referring down the bottom here somewhere. So what will happen is as I begin to move this, you'll notice that there's going to be a distance pop up down here. And that's going to show us the axis in which it's moving as well as the value in which it's moving to. So what we'll do is let's just say, for instance, if we want this to move up, I'm going to grab this arrow and I'm going to move it up, and you can see it down the bottom there, the distance. And it's showing me that it's moving up on the Z axis by, let's say 100. So 100 on the Z axis. So what I'm going to do is going back into my entity info, I'm going to change this third value because that's the Z axis to 100. And so just in case you guys missed it, it popped up down here. So I'll do that again. So you can see the distance there, the Z axis is showing it's going up. If it was going down, then it would go into the negatives. So in that case, you would need to set the value to negative 100 if it was going down. Which, you know what? Let's do that instead. Let's set it to 100 and we'll make it so that it goes down through the floor. Once we've done that, we can then also set a clip as well. So basically similar to the rotating door there. And we'll set that to a brush model as well. And in this case here, we're just going to set the target name to door 2. And then the KVP, same as the door one. So we're going to do script_noteworthy, and flip is the value. And then moving on to our trigger. So we'll pop that in. Again, we're going to have that overlap on both sides of the door here. And then the target name for this is also going to be zombie door. The target is going to be targeting the name of the script brush model. So in our case, that's door 2. The zombie cost, which we're also going to make $100. We'll make it $150 just to spice it up, actually. And then again, we're going to add a script underscore flag, and we're going to leave the value blank for that one. And I have just realized that I forgot to turn the dynamic path on, so we're just going to make sure that is enabled on the clip. So moving on, we're going to go ahead and set up what is a power door now. So in order to do this, basically you can use power doors for either sliding or rotating. So in my case here, I'm going to set up an example of each. So we'll start here with the sliding door. Now I've gone ahead and set up, this is a brush. So we're going to need to convert this one to a script brush model. So we can just repeat the same process that we just did. In this case here, I'm going to give this a little bit of a different name. So we're going to call this one power underscore door underscore 1 script underscore string move script underscore vector, and we'll have this one go up. So we'll say, we already know that the value for above is 100 from when we were looking at the original sliding door. So I'm going to set that to 100, and that's going to make it so that it's going to go up by 100 units, or up to this point here. We are also going to add our clip over the top. Make sure the dynamic path is turned on. Target name is going to be power underscore door underscore 1 in our case. And then script underscore noteworthy clip. All right, so far pretty much the same process as what we were doing previously. Now what we're going to do here is on the trigger, it is going to vary just a little bit. So what we'll do is pop it in, go to our entity info, and then in the target name, we are going to set this to zombie door. And we're still going to have it target the door in question, which is power underscore door underscore 1. All right, and then where it's going to differ here is we're going to add a script noteworthy. And we're going to set the value to electric underscore door. All right, so this is the value that's going to dictate that this is a power-based door. And so it's going to wait for power to turn on before this one opens. Now, since this is a power-based door, we don't need to worry about the zombie cost, but we do need to just add the script flag. Just like so. All right, so we'll do the same here with these doors on this side here. So we're going to convert these to script models. We'll call this power underscore door underscore 2. Script underscore string rotate. And then we'll do script underscore angles 0, 0, 0. And we'll have a look at the angles in which this is going to change to. So this is starting out at 270. So if I rotate this, I'm going to want it to open outward going this way. So let's see. So that goes to, so that should be 360. And then this one will likely be 180. So 360 and 180. We are going to add our clip over the top as per usual. Convert it into a brush model. Enable the dynamic path. Make sure it's got the same target name as the door models there. So power door underscore 2. And then script underscore noteworthy clip. And then last piece of the puzzle is, as mentioned, going to be the trigger use touch. So we'll pop that over there. Set this to zombie underscore door. We'll do target power underscore door underscore 2. Set the script underscore flag. And then the script noteworthy electric underscore door. Perfect. And so that is our power doors now set up. And then moving on to our last one here, which is the buyable debris. So I've gone ahead and placed these in here. They're not floating. I'm not doing floating in this tutorial. I personally have not been able to figure out the floating aspect, but there is a tutorial out there. So in my case, I've just set them up as if they were floating, but this is just, they're static objects. Just want to clarify that for you guys. So what we're going to do here is for a buyable debris, we're just going to start off by converting the models to script models as per usual. So selecting each of those. We're going to set the target name, again, can be whatever you want. So in my case, I'm just going to call this debris one because it's the first debris that we're doing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a target, and this value, you can call it whatever you want. And this is going to basically target where we're going to send this debris off to when we buy the door. So in my case, I generally just call it debris one and then underscore away. And you can see that you've got these lines here because it's targeting something that doesn't yet exist. So what we'll do is we're going to go to our entity browser, go down to script, and you're looking for script struct. And basically what we'll do is I'll just deselect those. A script struct, and I'm just going to place it here. And I'm just going to place it kind of like above the debris here. And it doesn't really matter whereabouts it is exactly as far as I know. So I usually just put it somewhere higher above. And then with the struct selected, we're just going to call this what we called the value of the target on this. So in our case, that was debris one underscore away. And once I click out of this, you'll begin to see some lines from these models to this struct. Okay, so that's telling us that these are now successfully targeting this struct up here. And ultimately what's going to happen is when we buy the door, or buy the debris, should I say, these models are going to go to this point and then disappear. And what we'll do next is we're going to do our clip. So in our case here, I'm just going to draw the clip a little bit wider because the models themselves actually do protrude out a little bit further. So I'm going to set it like this, although in a realistic setting, you'll just want to make sure that the clipping is very tidy. We're going to make sure we convert that to a brush model as per usual. So this process doesn't change. Make sure dynamic path is ticked. We're going to set the target name to debris. So debris one, and then the script underscore noteworthy, and then clip. And then again, just our trigger use touch. And then in this case here, the target name is actually going to be zombie underscore debris. And then the remainder of the KVPs should be the same. So in this case here, debris one is the value for the target. Zombie cost will be however much you want the door to cost. So again, we'll just do 100 points. And then the script flag. And so that is it for the doors and debris, guys. So hopefully you found that beneficial and you've got some insight on the different ways we can set up the doors there. Now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to circle back now to our triggers, and circling back specifically to the value we added, which was the script flag. And this is going to act as an identifier for a zone activation, which we'll talk a little bit more about in our zoning video, which is coming up in the near future. To briefly summarize this though, the value for the script flag can be whatever you like and should ultimately be whatever makes sense for you with relevance to the relationship between the two rooms or the two zones. So as an example, let's just say this was called zone 1 and this was called zone 2. I could set the script flag here to say Z1, Z2. Again, it can be whatever you want. It's just whatever makes sense in your brain. And then when we get to the point that we start our zoning process, then I would just need to make sure that I call this in script as the identifier that activates the relationship between the two zones. Since at this time I haven't done the zones or anything like that, I'm just going to leave this blank. The doors will still work fine without it. So you only need to worry about this when you begin your zoning process. So it's just good to have them already on the trigger so you can get that sort of underway once you commence the zoning process. Moving on, I do just have some general tips and tricks for you guys when setting up your doors. Now, this will mostly be in the form of additional or optional KVPs that you can add to your doors and debris to give them more personality, as I mentioned. One thing that I do just want to call out though, before we get into that, is when it comes to rotating doors, when you're picking the model that you're going to be using, one thing I'd recommend keeping an eye out for is where the origin of its rotation is. So in this case here, the origin of the rotation is going to be over on the hinge, which it naturally should be if the model's been set up correctly. In some instances, this blue box here may be in the center of the model, and that means that the model is going to rotate on its center. So in essence, it'll look like this in game when you don't want it to. In Raiden, it looks like this just because that's how it works. But in game, it's actually going to rotate at this point here. So the door is going to swing open, but this is going to be anchored at this point here. So when the blue square is in the middle, it means that this part of the model is going to be anchored there, and the rest of the model is going to rotate around it. Hence, it's going to look like this in game because the middle is staying in its anchored point. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Do just try and find a door model where the anchorage point is on the hinge. Now, as for the optional KVPs, there is a couple. Now, some of these I haven't used before, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Logical because I actually did watch his video to see if there was anything additional I could call out in this tutorial. So a few of them I do use, a few of them I don't. We're going to do all of them in this tutorial here today, and that way we can just test them in game as well. The first one here that I do use is Script Sound. Now, this, as far as I understand, this does actually need to be on the model, not on the trigger. So what you would do is if you want to have a particular sound play when you open a door or a debris, you can just select the model and add an additional KVP. In this case here, it would be script_sound. And then the value would be the name of the sound alias. So just to give you an idea of what this would look like, I've gone ahead and set up one here. So in my user alias, I've just gone ahead and set up an alias or a sound here, which is the Kino door sound. And so this is the name that I need to put in the value because that's the name of the alias. And then this is going to dictate where the sound is pulled from and, you know, how it plays and everything like that. So if you've got any sounds that you want to use and you want to play when the door opens, this is what you'd be needing to add. If you're not really sure how to do this sort of stuff, or if you would like a copy of this line here, then you want to add it to your own user aliases, by all means, feel free to stop by my Discord or flick me a DM. I'm happy to send that over to you if you'd like. But in my case here, I'm going to call this Kino_door. And this is going to make it so that a small wooden door opening sound plays when this door gets opened. Also, just on that, I don't know if you necessarily need to add that value or that KVP to all of the models. I imagine if you have it playing on, you know, 2 models close by, then it may sound a little bit weird. In my case, I'm just going to put it on the one door for now, and we'll just see how that looks and feels in game. For this next one though, I'm going to select both and we're going to set up a new KVP, and this is going to be script_transition_time. This is one that I do also use, and I do use this in conjunction with the script sound. What this is going to do is this is going to allow you to determine how long this takes in seconds for the door to open or to otherwise reach its starting point to its end point. Now, in my case here, I know that the sound that I've chosen for the script sound is 2 seconds long. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this to 2, and that's going to be 2 seconds that it's going to take for this door to open fully. So we'll see how that looks. If I go over to our Buyable Debris here, what we'll do is there's a few that we can pop on these ones here. So these are 2 that I haven't used before. So the first one is script_noteworthy and then jiggle. And this will just make it so that the models themselves just do a little bit of a jiggle effect as they sort of move away. So we'll add that. We can then also add script_effects ID. And then this one here, we're going to call large_ceiling_. And that'll make it so that you have a little bit of an effects playing when you open that. And then another one we can do is script_fire effects. And the value will be poltergeist. And that'll also play another effects on that one there as well. And I'm also just going to add a transition time on one of the power doors here. Okay, so let's just say that this takes 5 seconds. And we'll say that this one, let's say this takes 20 seconds. Let's say it takes a little while for it to open up. All right, and that should be all of our tips and tricks mostly covered. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to recompile and link the map and whatnot, and we're going to test this all out in game. So I'll see you guys over there. All right, guys, so here we are in game. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a bit of a walkthrough around here, and we'll just make sure everything's working as it should be. So we'll start off here with our rotating door. Let's just kill some of these zombies. We'll just get ourselves a few points. And let's open up this one. There we go. So as you can see, it took a little bit longer for it to open. And we did have that wooden door sound effect playing as well. Okay, so that works perfectly. If we go over to our sliding door, okay, so we can't pass through it right now. That's as a result of the clip and probably from the script brush model as well, to be honest. But we've got our trigger popping up there. And again, as you can see, we're getting that trigger pop up because we've used a trigger use touch. So we can just be touching any part of that trigger in order for that prompt to pop up there. So let's go ahead and open this one. This should slide through the ground. Beautiful, just like so. Let's go over to our power section now. Before we do that, if we just walk up to the power door, you can see we must turn on the power first, just like so. And if we turn on the power, you'll see that it's beginning to open, and they are going a little bit slower because we've adjusted that script transition time. And yeah, we can pass through that. I don't know why that does that. And I don't know how to fix that, but probably an easy fix for someone who knows how to do it. But you can technically pass through it once the trigger has been activated, basically. And then we've got our last one here, which is the debris, which was $100. I'm just going to run around to the other side just to show you guys that you can actually get it from both sides. All right, and so if we pay for this, we should be able to see the effects and the jiggle and whatnot. Just like so. And so you saw that the direction in which the debris move was up towards that struct that we placed. And then of course, as mentioned, they do just disappear afterwards as well. So lots of good variety there for you guys. The trigger use touch, again, I just want to sort of like re-emphasize on that because I have had a few people reach out to me asking with respect to their zoning. So the trigger use touch, having it on both sides or having it cover both sides, it is good with respect to the zoning, because when you're doing zoning and you have a loop like this where you can sort of get to certain rooms from multiple directions, you want to make sure that you can buy that door from either side going into the adjacent zone. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we go through the zoning process. But look, hopefully you guys did find this one beneficial. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you've got any tips or tricks of your own, or if there's anything here that you realize I've done wrong and want to correct, by all means, feel free to drop a comment down below. Otherwise, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, or if you're finding these beneficial and want to see more. Until then, feel free to check out one of the 2 videos on screen if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys all in the next one. Peace out.